Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers won 120-108 over the Denver Nuggets to improve to 43-25. They surpassed Denver in the West standings, jumped up from number 4 to number 3, got a very important win, a win that could factor into the West standings at the end of the season. Technically, the two teams tied the season series at 2-2, but the next tiebreaker is the conference record, which the Lakers have the edge on Denver right now in the win and loss column by 3 games. So depending on how things play out the rest of the way, the Lakers should be in control of the head-to-head tiebreaker over Denver, which could end up mattering based on these teams being Denver has one more win, Lakers have one fewer loss. They're essentially tied from a games perspective, and that could end up being a big factor at the end of the season. It is worth noting, no Nikola Jokic and no Jamal Murray tonight for Denver. But unlike when the Lakers played in Denver last week, without Luka, without LeBron, without Rui, without Jackson, without 4 of their 5 starters and Gabe and DFS, this was not a close game. Like at the end, garbage time, yeah, their bench guys outplayed the Lakers bench guys, but the Lakers were in control of this game really from start to finish. It was a little close to start, and then Luka, well, it was not close to start. Luka got off to a 14-2 start almost by himself. Then Denver kind of got tied it up or got it relatively close in like the middle of the first, and then LA just took off from there. And I think Denver got it within like low teens at various points, but Lakers were pretty much up by 20 plus for most of this game. But before we get into tonight's show, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. All right. Shout out to the late night gang. Shout out. This is the message of the night from Ryan. Belt to ass tonight. Yeah. Team Hiatus, Kevin Cambridge, Chris, Jeff, Pablo, Isaiah, Colby, Michael, Ryan, J Note, Jake, Alvin, Quentin, Justine, Mr. Messenger, E, Angelco, Mitch, trying to get to everybody, Mixelflix, Britton, Angel, Ethan. All right, Giovanni, like the name. So let's get into it. Overarching thought on tonight's game for me is this was an important win for multiple reasons. One, it keeps the Lakers' hopes alive of being the number 2 seed. They continue to be in the mix. And had they lost this game, had they lost one of the Phoenix or San Antonio games, it would be shifting toward them potentially looking like they're going to be in the 4 or 5, depending on, again, there's a lot of moving parts here. So it's going to be a game by game basis here, but we can just evaluate things after each game. And as of right now, they are still firmly in the mix for the number 2 seed. They have continued to, remain on par with the rest of the teams in that mix in terms of Houston and Denver and Memphis, and some of those teams have been dropping games. Houston's hot right now. They've won 8 in a row, but Denver and Memphis have been losing a little bit. So this is an important win for the Lakers to remain in the hunt for the 2 seed, which obviously they've won 9 in a row at home now. They are a dominant team at home. And if they can somehow get the 2 seed, that sets them up really nicely on the opposite side of the bracket as OKC, and puts them in a position to potentially just go to the conference finals and have I wouldn't say easy path, because I think every team in the West is good. And the 7th seed could be Minnesota, who's been one of the better teams in the conference recently. But having home court advantage for at least the first 2 rounds would be huge for the Lakers. So I think that would dramatically increase their odds of getting to the conference finals. So it was a big win for that. I think it continues to, even though there was no Jokic and Murray, I think it continues to show like they're now 2-1 against Denver in their last 3 games, which have all come in the last month or so. And they had the statement win in Denver. They nearly had another statement win without 4/5 of their starting lineup. And no Jokic or Murray tonight, but still no LeBron and no Rui. And not to say that that's an equal net loss for like both sides, but it's still like the Lakers are not whole either. They are missing 2 starters, 2 of their top 4 scorers, their best or second best player, depending on the night. Like those are 2 important pieces that they're missing. And this just continues them building confidence and showing themselves that there's nothing to be afraid of with the Nuggets. Other than the singular brilliance of Jokic and him being the best player in the world and capable of beating anybody on a given night, like they have, in my opinion, I talked about it with Trevor Lane in the last episode of Buha's Block. Like they punched the bully in the face and they realize the bully bleeds and they're no longer afraid of the bully. And it does feel like there's been an energy shift in these matchups with Denver. And as I mentioned at the top, this puts the Lakers ahead of Denver as of right now for the tiebreaker. There still are a bunch of important West games, but assuming the Lakers can hold their own in the conference the rest of the season, they should win the head-to-head tiebreaker with Denver, which would be a nice, potential tiebreaker there that could determine 2 or 3 seed, 3 or 4 seed, 4 or 5, etc. You get the point. And then the final thing with this is the Lakers have now gone 3-2 in this stretch of 6 games in 8 days, which was and is the toughest stretch of the season because no other team in the league has a stretch like this. No other team plays 6 games in 8 days, has 3 consecutive back-to-backs. And the Lakers had the 0-2 start, losing in Denver, losing Milwaukee, nearly split it, nearly won the Denver game, then beat Phoenix and San Antonio in convincing fashion, and then now beat Denver in convincing fashion. And again, it was not full strength Denver, but you play the team that's in front of you. You play the game that's in front of you. Lakers did that. And now at worst, they're going to go 3-3 over this 6-game stretch. And there's a real chance they go 4-2 with the way that they've been playing and the way that Milwaukee's playing. They're having meetings and stuff with Doc and Dame and Giannis, and they've just lost some games they shouldn't have lost. So the Lakers have a chance here to go 4-2, and that would really, I think, put them in a nice position to continue to be trending toward that number 2 seed. Notable performance tonight. We have to start with Luka, as always, 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, 2 steals, 10 of 21 shooting, 4-9 on threes, 7-10 at the free throw line. Did have 6 turnovers, which was really the only blemish. But Luka set the tone early with 21 first quarter points, which was his season high for a quarter this season. Helped the Lakers score 46 points in the first quarter, which was their season high for any quarter this season. And you saw, I'm going to touch on it in my first takeaway, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but you just saw the effect of Luka having the big first quarter and what it did for the Lakers offense. Second person, as always, or as recently, is Austin. 22 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 8 of 16 shooting, 2 for 7 on threes, 4 for 4 at the free throw line, 2 steals, a block, and only 1 turnover for Austin. Also worth mentioning, Luka had a block. And then Austin continues to be awesome and has been thriving as the number 2 and continues to make his case for best number 3 in the NBA, or at least in that conversation. DFS has found his offensive rhythm, had 14 points, continues to score. I believe this is 3 straight games for him in double figures. 14, 4, and 4, had 4 assists tonight, and was making some nice reads and as a connecting piece offensively. Jordan Goodwin, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals for Jordan Goodwin. He is a true banshee, as JJ likes to call him, and didn't 2 for 7 shooting, 0 for 3 on threes, but he's out there for his defense, and he was wreaking havoc as always. I think a shout out to the bench. Gabe had 12 points, hit 4 threes. Vando had 10 points, had 3 steals, and played 18 minutes, but was playing a little bit more than he had been recently. And Dalton had 12 points and hit 3 threes. So each one of those guys stepped in and made some plays on, with Gabe and Dalton, it was more offensively. With Vando, it was more defensively, as to be expected. But a lot of good things tonight. Another all-around team win where most of the rotation played well. A stat of the night for me, I'll have 2. So I will say Luka's and the team's just first quarter offense, season high 46 points. Luka's season high 21 points. But then I look at 30 points off of turnovers, which is the second highest total for the Lakers this season. And interestingly, their season high was 37 points in Denver on February 22nd, in the statement win, where Luka had 32 and really dominated. So their most and second most points off of turnovers this season have both come against Denver in the past month. And I think that is a matchup advantage that the Lakers have, where they have really, I don't want to say figured out the Nuggets offense, especially because today, again, no Jokic and Murray. But there are some trends here where they are, I think, putting Denver in some uncomfortable spots offensively and really shrinking the floor against them and forcing them to try to, I think, make passes in congested spaces and tight spaces. And you're seeing the benefit of that with LA tonight. 13 steals and forced 19 Denver turnovers. So awesome stuff defensively from them against Denver's offense. Takeaway number 1 for me is first quarter dawn. And this is obviously a play on words for Luka. And so entering tonight, Luka was averaging nearly 10 points per game in the first quarter as a Laker, which is the most points he scores in any quarter, and by almost about like 30%. I think that the third quarter he's at like about 6.5 points per game. So you see the difference there. And tonight, 21 points, season high for any quarter. And I think what that does is, JJ talked about this after the game, it has this domino effect where all of a sudden, once Luka gets hot and he's cooked, and at first, they were switching a lot tonight. And the one thing that I'll say with this that gives me even more confidence with the Denver matchup for the Lakers is that obviously they're much worse and really just are not like a playoff caliber team without Jokic and Murray. But from a defensive perspective only, if you were trying to build like the best Denver defensive lineup, or even within a series against the Lakers, if they were like, we're just getting torched defensively right now, we need to throw out a defensive minded group, you would probably throw something out like an Aaron Gordon, a Peyton Watson, a Christian Brown, Russ, who is a better defender than Jamal Murray, and then MPJ, just because of the size. Obviously, he's a target for Luka, and Luka was targeting him a lot in the first. But you probably would go with something like their starting lineup tonight. And it didn't matter who it was, because you're removing Jokic and Murray, who are 2 frequent targets for Luka in that starting group. And you're going with Peyton Watson, who's one of their better defenders and kind of like their version, I would say a lesser version of Vando, but like kind of their version of Vando off the bench. And then you're going with Russ, who again is a better defender than Jamal Murray. So on paper, like they were better equipped to guard the Lakers, and they were just switching everything. But that allowed Luka to still pick on MPJ, which is kind of a roster flaw for them, that they can't really field like 5 quality defenders together. But even when it was Aaron Gordon, you saw the one play where he beat him off the dribble, and it was kind of like Gordon was providing some resistance, and Luka started pushing back, and you saw he was matching him strength for strength, stride for stride. And then Peyton Watson too. He got like a block on Luka, I think in the second half at one point on a drive, but like he was cooking Peyton Watson too. So it didn't matter who was switched onto Luka. They were either too small, too slow, too weak, or some combination of those 3. And he cooked their entire starting group And then, of course, the bench as well, whenever those lineups were mixed together. But like, I think Luka set the tone, and having the big first quarter, I think it caused Denver to start trapping him and doubling him and playing him a certain way that they were not initially playing him as, and or against him. And that just led to the Lakers having their 4-on-3 and 3-on-2 situations offensively. And I think that's when you saw like hockey assists is not something that is tracked on the traditional box score, but if it was, you'd see a lot of hockey assists for Luka. Even so, he had 7 tonight, but then Austin had 8, and this was Lakers had 25 assists on 42 shots. So there was an element of some of these guys kind of doing some self-creation, but it did feel like Luka just continues to put pressure on defenses to the point where they have to sell out, they have to double him, they have to blitz him, and that just gives the Lakers a numbers advantage, and they take advantage of it more often than not. So I think, again, the big first quarter continues to be a trend for him. I think it does set a tone. JJ also referenced that last year in Dallas, he had a bunch of 20-plus point first quarters, and that just is kind of how Luka's game is. And I do think him starting with the scoring and coming out aggressively, because sometimes like LeBron is almost the opposite, where LeBron, he will have his big first quarters, but he almost likes to set the tone early and get guys going and kind of feed off that. And then you'll see LeBron, like there'll be games where he has like 16 entering the fourth, and then he'll finish with like 32, because LeBron, I think, is trying to set guys up more and then use almost like the inverse of once his teammates are going and the defense is kind of off kilter, then he attacks and kind of steps on their neck in the fourth, where Luka's almost the opposite, where I mean, he does have plenty of big fourth quarters and crunch times and whatnot, but it's like he gets out to these big first quarters, and then the defenses are now just like panicking the rest of the game, and that opens up so much for them offensively. And then he could still pick his spots and still get his. But I think that's like just an interesting trend to monitor. And then again, I think Denver just has no answer for Luka, and ultimately, I think that's why the Lakers should be confident going into a potential Denver series. Takeaway number 2. I already touched on it a little bit in the overarching thoughts portion, but Lakers are 3-2 in the stretch, which I think is a resounding win. They were close to being 4-1 with the Denver game, and bouncing back and winning these 3 straight games, I think does negate somewhat that 0-4 road trip and how much of a disaster that was. And this is, to kind of even build this out a little bit more, like this is resiliency, and this is bounce back, right? And grit. And this is what this group has shown all season. Anytime they go through a rough stretch, they always come out of it stronger and tougher, and with I think a better sense of self, a better confidence, a better identity. And we're seeing it now where, again, they're doing all this without LeBron and without Rui. 2 starters, 2 of their 4 leading scorers, I would say 2 of their 4 best players. And they've missed a beat for sure at some points, right? And they haven't been the same, but they continue to rack up wins. They continue to find ways to put teams away early. I mean, really, they've had 3 straight convincing wins. And sure, Phoenix is a mess. San Antonio's without their 2 best players. Denver was without their 2 best players. But we also just saw a Denver team go into Golden State, who had been one of the hottest teams in the league, and beat them because Golden State did not come with the requisite focus and just approach to that game. And the Lakers, despite them also being shorthanded, did, right? So on any given night, you can be beaten by anybody. We've seen that with the Lakers post Luka trade, losing to Charlotte, losing to Utah, losing to Brooklyn. Like they can be beaten if they don't come with the right approach. But I think that they really rebounded well these last 3 games, and I think have been in a much better mental space, and that's important, and that's what you want to see heading into the playoffs. And then takeaway number 3, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is preview the next game, because really, like, I feel like a lot of the trends from this game I've talked about. Like I've talked about how great Austin's been. I've talked about Goodwin. I've talked about Vando and just like the impact of the Banshees defensively. The defense was largely pretty good tonight. Jackson was Jackson. Not like teams have really tried to take away Jackson, but I think that opens up some corner and weak side 3-point opportunities. And then Gabe Dalton, like we've touched on a lot of this stuff. So I want to preview the Milwaukee game because I think that's a big game. And as I said, it will determine if LA goes 3-3 or 4-2 in the stretch. And obviously 4-2 is much better with so few games remaining. So going back to the game from last week, LA lost 126-106. And I think a few things stand out on the stat sheet. Milwaukee took 33 free throw attempts, and LA only had 18. So you see there already, like that was one of those games, not quite as like the Knicks game, the Nets game, the Denver game. I think there were some that were certainly worse from an officiating standpoint. But Giannis took 13 free throws, which nearly matched the Lakers total of 18. Dame had 8. Kevin Porter Jr. had 7 off the bench. So I think that was a big thing, that if the Lakers can reduce the fouls, like looking at it, DFS had 5, Austin had 3, Keith had 3, Jordan Goodwin had 3, Dalton had 3. Also, I think a big factor going in the Lakers' favor is replacing Alex Len with Jackson Hayes. Now, being at home, of course, is a swing here with how much better LA has been at home. But having Jackson Hayes, like he is a mobile big who I'm interested to see if they start him on Giannis. I would assume that they start DFS on Giannis. But Jackson being able to switch and also being able to rotate out to Brook Lopez. I think one of the biggest things in that game was Alex Len really struggling to cover ground defensively, and that got Brook Lopez going. He hit 3 of his 4 threes, and it felt like, off the top of my head, at least 2 of them were against Len, if not all 3, in terms of that being Len's rotation. And he just doesn't have the foot speed to be rotating out to a stretch 5 like that. I think Jackson Hayes does. I think that actually plays more into his skill set defensively. So I think just swapping Len for Jackson, to say nothing of the offensive end, where that gives Luka that pick and roll partner and also a short roll playmaker, and like it just really improves the Lakers on both sides of the ball. Then you have DFS, who's been playing better offensively this game. He had 5 points, 1 for 5 shooting. Gabe had 6 points, 0 for 5 shooting on threes for both of these guys I'm talking about. But like Luka had 45 at 11. Austin had 28 and 8, but both of those guys only had 3 assists because the supporting cast was just not making shots. So I think with Jackson back, Alex Len out of the rotation, I think we'll see a similar amount of Christian Koloko, and then Goodwin will be in the starting group. I think the Lakers are better equipped with just some of the changes they made, getting Jackson back, and how some of these guys have been playing more recently. Now, it is the second night of a back-to-back, and it is the 6th game in 8 days. So I think there is a cumulative effect and concern, I guess, of just like where the leg's going to be for this group tomorrow. But I think just taking Alex Len out and putting Jackson in, and even taking Keith out of the rotation, and it being Jackson, DFS, Goodwin, Luka, AR, and then Vando, Gabe, DK, and Koloko, I think that 9-man rotation is a lot stronger than the one that they played with in Milwaukee last week. And I think the Lakers are in a much better spot to potentially win that game, win their 4th straight game, go to 4-2 in the 6-game stretch, which seemed improbable going into this stretch. Before, like, looking at this like 3 weeks ago, it was going to be, again, the toughest stretch of the season objectively, because no team has 3 straight back-to-backs like this. But then you factor in Rui goes down and his knee injury has lingered and he's still not back. LeBron goes down in the road trip, and it's like, okay, now not only do you have this stretch, but you are shorthanded, and it ultimately has not mattered. They've won 3 games. I think they've taken care of business, and this is a successful stretch no matter what happens tomorrow against Milwaukee. But I think the Lakers have a real shot to win that game, despite it being the second night of a back-to-back, 6th game in 8 days, and Milwaukee coming in with a certain level of desperation after this big team meeting that they had, and their season kind of being on the ropes right now. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. I see we got some super chats here. First one from Bubble OG Bill. Thank you for the super chat. Tiebreaker is if you win your division. That is a good point. I guess I immediately went to the comparing the interdivision record, which obviously they're not in the same division. But yes, if Lakers win their division, which they should, they have a 3.5 game lead on Golden State. They automatically get the tiebreaker. Even if it was conference record, they seem to be trending toward winning it regardless. So, but thank you for the correction. That is a good note. And also, while I'm here, I will make one other correction, and I'm going to partially blame Basketball Reference for how they are tracking this. But Trey Jemison has 9 games of eligibility remaining, not 7. I guess there was a couple games in the New Orleans portion where he was, at least on Basketball Reference where I was checking, he was deemed inactive or active but did not play. And there's a couple of those where he just was inactive. So he actually has 2 extra games of eligibility, which is important for the Lakers. They have 14 games left, and he could play in 9 of them before they have to make their call. Now, with Jordan Goodwin, it's a little tougher. He's got 4 remaining now, but I think that's one that they just have to. They have to cut someone and add Jordan Goodwin to the official 15-man roster. But Trey Jemison has 9 games left, so I just wanted to clarify that. Mitch Potter, thank you for the super chat. Almost doubled our steal average of 7.7, had 13, 11 from Goody, Vando, AR, and Luka. Energy kept up no matter the score. Also, Luka's 200th 30-point game. All great numbers there. 13 steals is a lot. I don't know off the top of my head where that is in terms of the Lakers' season numbers. I'm gonna pull that up quickly here, but I mean they are incredible at loading up the paint and playing passing lanes. I think that's become a bit of a calling card for this group in terms of their defensive identity, which entering this more recent stretch, we didn't really associate that with them necessarily. So 13 steals is tied for the 3rd most on the season. Their season high is 15 at Denver on February 22nd. Then they had 14 against Portland, 14 against the Clippers, and then 13 is tied for 3rd most. So yeah, a really good game in terms of playing the passing lanes, excuse me. And 230-point games for Luke. I mean, my brain's all over the place. 200th 30-point game for Luka. Yeah. Lawrence James, thank you for the super chat. Insane we have Goodwin to replace 75% of Christie. Also, the Koloko versus Jemison debate is over. Give me Jemison as an enforcer. Koloko's not ready yet. And Koloko has had a couple of rough games. I'm not giving up on him, but I understand. I think Jemison is a little steadier, I would say, and I think that might matter. I still think Koloko, in terms of the rim protection and being a lob threat, is ahead of Jemison, and I think those are 2 important facets of that backup 5 spot. But again, I think in general, Jemison's floor is higher than Koloko's. Koloko's had some bobbled lobs, some bobbled passes, then sometimes just kind of wildly swinging to try and block a shot and gets a foul. So that's certainly been an issue over the past couple games for him. 2 or 3. I'm trying to remember. I know for sure the last 2. I'm trying to remember the Phoenix game. It's all kind of blending together. And yeah, Goodwin is 75% of Christie. Like there are some differences. I think Goodwin's more physical and a bit stronger, and he's got a lower center of gravity. Max is a bit more wiry and lanky. I think Max is better against point guards and like those quicker, shiftier guys. But Goodwin, I think, can also, like, he's more of a 2-guard defender, but he can even guard up a little bit. And then some similarities with the rebounding, though I would say even like I think Goodwin's probably a slightly better rebounder, certainly a better offensive rebounder, but in general, I think Max is a better rebounder than his numbers were suggesting this season. I think the big difference is just the 3-point shooting, where Goodwin he's been shooting well from the corners and shooting better overall more recently, but it's still on relatively low volume. He's still a guy that teams ignore, where Christie had become a 40% 3-point shooter. And I know he's been in like a bit of a slump with Dallas recently, but in general, I think Christie, but you're saying 75%, and I largely agree. Like, I think he's in that range. It might even be 80, 85%. Like, it depends on the night, but Jordan Goodwin's been awesome, and he needs to be on the roster. BLC, Lakers are for real. If Luke, it's not going to read it as F Luka, but I'm going to assume you have an I in there. So if Luka, AR, and LBJ cook early, we have a huge edge. And if not, the role players can get hot. Luka, AR, LBJ going off makes it easier to win. Yeah, the crazy thing is, like, the Lakers offense, from like an offensive rating perspective, has still not clicked and like fully formed to where I think they could get to. And that is like one of the to be the most encouraging things longer term. Is like, I still think there's so much untapped potential with this offense, with getting LeBron and Rui back, but also the offensive organization, the offensive execution, the shot making. I think that the shot quality has really improved, but the shot making has been inconsistent. And I do think part of that is just some of these guys are inconsistent shooters or inconsistent, play, more so shooters. But if it stabilizes a bit and gets closer to what it can be, and I think with time and with reps and with whenever they practice next, which JJ had said is going to be in April. So that April practice in 2 weeks, they have the first, and they're off the first and second. So I would assume they practice at least one, if not both of those days. That's where I think this is going to just continue to build and go to a different level offensively. And the defense has been great. They are top 4 or 4th in defensive rating since acquiring DFS. They are number 2 since mid-January. So that's going to maintain that. To me, like, at worst, they're a top 10 defense, but I mean, they've been a top 5. So it's hard not to say that they're going to remain in that mix of being a top 5 defense. The key for me is just like, can they get to maybe not their offensive ceiling, because they just might not have enough time. They might have lost some of that time, or they did lose some of that time with Rui and LeBron being out. But also, you can still build that in the playoffs. So if you get the 2 seed and you have an advantageous matchup in round 1, you get the Clippers or the Timberwolves, and you win that series in 5 or 6, then that builds your confidence, that builds your high-end reps in like a playoff setting, and that sets you up for an even better round 2, assuming you can come out of it unscathed health-wise. So I think the Lakers are really trending in the right direction offensively, and some of these reps without LeBron and Rui are going to pay dividends, I think, down the road. Braden, thank you for the super chat. It's always a great day/night whenever we beat the Nuggets. I got 20. You talking about ball, don't lie. Luka. Yeah, I mean, that was a great moment. I love, like, I'm all in on the Luka trash talking, and it's a sight to behold. I'd obviously seen it from when he was with Dallas, but seeing it every night, or every other day with how the Lakers play, it's like, it's just I respect like the commitment to it. Like, he is constantly just trash talking, and it doesn't matter. Like, I genuinely think it really fuels him. And he's talked about like almost having like an alter ego or just like a different persona on the court or off the court. Luka is super laid back. He's chill. Like most of the time we're around him, he's just on his phone, at his locker, icing or just chilling after the game. He'll crack some jokes. Teammates will walk by, and like that's the extent of it. But on the court, he's an MFer, and he's always talking to the refs basically every possession. But he is scoring on people and talking to them. He's talking to Aaron Gordon. He was talking to Peyton Watson, and it didn't matter who it was. He's going at everyone's neck, and it's fun to watch just like as an observer and as just like a basketball fan and purist. It's interesting to see like how much of that is like a part of his game, which again was something I knew, but like actually seeing it's like it's really there, and it's fun to observe. So yeah, I mean you get these moments every night with him, and it's fun. BLC, thank you for the super chat. We need to stay at 2 to 3 seed and hope Denver stays 4 to 5. I think that's the ideal situation or outcome, is Denver dropping to 4 or 5, playing OKC, those two teams slugging it out, having a 6 or 7 game series, and then the Lakers playing one of those two teams in the conference finals. I would say, well, the confidence has grown a lot against Denver. I still don't think that's like an easy series necessarily. And in comparison to Memphis and Houston, I think when it comes down to it, as good as the Lakers defense has been, and as much as the offense still has some work to do and some progress to make, like I have more confidence in their playoff offense in terms of, I think no matter how good the defense is, maybe OKC is the exception. Like I think they're going to get theirs, and LeBron and Luka are going to do their thing. Austin's going to do his thing. And there might be some variance with the role players making shots, but like, I think when it comes down to like possession by possession basketball and scouting an opponent and knowing who to attack and where to attack them, I have confidence in the Lakers offense. I think the one thing that I think I have a little less confidence in is like the I don't want to say the getting stops, because I still think they're good defensively, but like if they are just playing a great shot making team where just like Luka and LeBron can beat great defense, Jokic can beat great defense, Murray can beat great defense. So like I think I have a little bit more concern with Denver and their offense in a 7-game series than like Memphis in their offense or Houston in their offense. So I say all that to say, I still think Memphis and Houston are easier matchups than Denver. My point is basically just been like, I thought Denver was the second toughest matchup, and they still probably are. I just have much more confidence in the Lakers' ability to win that, which is why, as of right now, I mean, I've been saying this for going on almost a month. I think Lakers are the 4th best team in the league. I think they're the 2nd best team in the West, and I would pick them in a 7-game series against anybody outside of OKC. And even that, I'm willing to reconsider depending on how those matchups look if OKC plays their guys. But with Denver, I think previously I thought it was going to be a bit closer than I think now. And I think now the Lakers should be the favorites in that series. And who knows, like we unfortunately only got like one real game of it, and it was still like early in the Luka experience. But based on that, based on how the last couple games have gone, I think that Denver just has some real defensive issues against the Lakers. And I would rather play Memphis and Houston still, but like I do think the Lakers have some things that are in their favor against Denver, I guess was my point there. Kerwin, Reeves balling, thank you for the super chat. Reeves balling lately, but as we move on after LBJ retires, Reeves' ceiling would be the best third player due to his limitation. To be a contender, they need to look for a star center or forward player. I don't disagree. I one thing I want to be careful with is like I don't think we know what Austin's ceiling is. I think he continues to rewrite his ceiling each season, and he is 26, so he is nearing his physical prime. I think with him entering the league a little bit later, like maybe he's a guy who hits his prime like 28 or 29. So I still think he could be 2 or 3 years away from that. I think ideally he is a true number 3, and that's the way the roster is constructed. I also think the Lakers are thinking this way and looking at that summer of 2026 as a summer to get a second all-star or the number 2 to Luka's number 1 and Austin's number 3. So I think the Lakers are already looking at things like this and thinking about if that would be assuming LeBron plays one more year, that it's like, how can we build the best team with a trio of Luka, star, most likely to your point, like a big man or a wing, X, and then Austin. But so I don't think they should just like go into the future with saying it's like Luka, Austin, and a bunch of role players, because I don't think that's probably good enough. I think they need a guy at least as good as Austin, if not better, to build the optimal roster and starting lineup and whatnot. But I think the one thing here is like, I don't want to put a ceiling on Austin yet. I still think he can and should get better. And I think the Lakers are already thinking this way. So I think you're right. I think that the interesting question is like, what does that, or like which star makes sense with Luka and Austin? I think you're pretty covered with the playmaking, the shot creation on the perimeter. So a front court player probably makes the most sense, and ideally some type of finisher, like paint presence, I think would make sense. But yeah, I mean, but with Austin, I'm not saying he's going to go from like a number 3 to a number 2, but I think he has clearly ascended into the number 3 range and the high end number 3 range, and he could still go even higher, I think, within like that position or that designation. And so I do think 28-year-old Austin will be better than 26-year-old Austin. I'd be very surprised if he's not better in 2 years, which I just think speaks to his growth, his competitiveness, and just the way that he has evolved at the NBA level. Darian, thank you for the super chat. I think it's time to not only sign Goodwin to the roster, but get a team-friendly long-term deal. Thoughts? 100% agree. I said this, I want to say a couple streams ago, maybe last stream, but within the last couple streams, that I would sign Goodwin to as long of a deal as possible, which I believe is 4 years, but sign him like, I think he has some leverage here where he has played well enough to like deserve like maybe a 3+1, 3 years guaranteed, team option on the 4th year, something like that. But he's been great in that role. I think there are nights where he is closer to being their 6th best player than their 9th best player, and getting that in a 9th man is what you want from a 9th man. He just does all the little things. I believe Trevor compared him to like a smaller Vando, or like a guard Vando, and I see it. I would even say he does like, Vando's overall the better defender, better rebounder, but I think Goodwin's a better like connecting piece offensively. He's a better shooter. So like he's been great, and I could not agree more. I think the Lakers need to sign him to at least a 3, but ideally a 4-year deal, and just get him locked up, because this is a dude who I think could be a bargain contract for a while. And it's similar to like he's in that mold of an Alex Caruso, a KCP. I've compared him to Bruce Brown. Like you want to lock those guys up for as long as possible. RGN, Cal 4, thank you for the super chat. Reed, Rui, and LeBron are going to play into shape. True. So I think you're referencing what JJ was saying of like they don't really have time to practice, so that they're gonna have to just kind of do some condition. Like Rui was doing some 3-on-3 stuff. I assume that's stay ready and like that's kind of how they have to ramp up to get back in to playing. So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, you guys see where my brain's at. Yes, but it does seem like with Rui playing 3-on-3, I'm operating under the assumption he's going to be back soon, if not Saturday, then early next week. With LeBron, it still seems to be a little less clear, but I feel like, again, Saturday is probably in play to a lesser extent, and then next week seems to be much more in play on that 4-game road trip. So I think both should be back within the next week and a half, and that's a week to week and a half, and that's a positive for the Lakers. Lee Baggy, thank you for the super chat. Look at the Thunder game to see where we stand. The one thing with the Thunder game, and or the Thunder games, because they play them twice, they're so far ahead of the rest of the West that they might just be rest. So I'm curious. I'm going to look this up now. So OKC, they're going to lock up the 1 seed. But the Laker games, after the 2 Laker games, they have 3 games left. So it's game 5 and 4 in terms of like how many games are left with their season. And those final 3 are at Phoenix, at Utah, at New Orleans. So it's technically their final 2 home games of the regular season, which is interesting. I think, okay, so that Sunday, April 6th game is an NBA TV game. So it's not an ABC game. It's not an ESPN game. So say if it was a nationally televised game, maybe they show up for that one and then rest on April 8th. It's a tricky balance because you don't want to get out of rhythm if you're OKC, right? Like you want to have a certain level of rhythm and momentum going to the playoffs. So I think they're probably going to play one of those games, at least one, if not both, seriously. Potentially one, just because they're going to have such a big lead. But if it's just one, that's going to be a big game. And it's really going to show us where the Lakers stack up against them. Of course, it's just one game. Someone could get Aaron Wiggins could hit 10 threes, and it's like, okay, is that going to happen in the playoffs? Most likely not. Shea could shoot 20 free throws. Is that going to happen in the playoffs? Maybe. We'll see. But it is one game, but I would like to have that data point rather than not. I see it's lagging a bit. I apologize. Ronnie Van Exel. YouTube search Ryan Anderson, Alex Len, Len's Prime, by the way. Okay, is this a good search or a bad search in terms of his defense? I'm gonna guess he was guarding Ryan Anderson when Ryan Anderson hit like 9 threes or something. Aneth, thank you for the super chat. Why do the Lakers and NBA teams in general not practice very often during the season? I've talked about this a little bit, but this is a more recent development, like last 10 to 15 years, where I think it's really a byproduct of the analytics movement and the sports science movement taking on some analytic or analytical components, where they are just constantly measuring these guys in terms of their biometrics and their energy level, their injury risk, and all these different factors. And they've determined that it is more valuable to have rest days than it is to have practice days on those days. So if there are 2 days off or 2 days in between, typically right after a game, like that next day they'll have off, and then the following day they'll have a practice. But with the way the schedule is and with the NBA trying to reduce back-to-backs in general, there are rarely 2 days off in a row, like consecutively. Like it's basically every other day schedule. Or sometimes it's like a trap, like you'll have 2 days off, but then one of the days is the day before a road game. So you're traveling that day, because the day before a road game or a road trip is always the travel day. So let's say they play Friday and their next game is Monday, but it's in Milwaukee. Well, we'll say because they're playing the Bucks next. They will travel on Sunday to Milwaukee, so that they'll be off Saturday because they played Friday. Then they will fly to Milwaukee on Sunday. Sometimes they will do a practice before the flight, and that's an occasional thing. But more often it's just don't practice Sunday, fly Sunday, because now you got to factor in like the impact of flying on the body and traveling, and then maybe have a shoot around on Monday, but probably not. I think shoot around's more the one where I think there's less of a argument against that one, because it's like most shoot arounds are very low impact. It's basically just a walkthrough and some shooting, and you're not playing 5-on-5. You're not scrimmaging. You're not even really having that much time to go through like a lot of on-court work in terms of like sets and coverages and whatnot. It is like more so a game prep like walkthrough. So them not having as many shoot arounds, the Lakers and just the league in general, I think is interesting. Lakers especially have like Milwaukee's having a shoot around tomorrow. Lakers have really just not had shoot arounds lately. They basically shifted towards having these pregame walkthroughs when we're not allowed to be out there on the court. And then I've talked about the get what you need days and whatnot. But I think it's largely a sports science shifting and part of the greater analytics movement towards like optimizing everything. And back in the day, I mean, it was rare for them to have an off day in terms of not practicing. Now it's shifted the complete opposite way. And honestly, the injury data is kind of mixed in terms of if it's actually worked or not, but it doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. Fahim, thank you for the super chat. What, if any, atypical stats do you pay attention to during/after a game? What sites/resources do you use to monitor stats? Ever reference PBP stats? I don't use them enough, to be honest. I probably should use them more. I would say the big ones for me are I have a special plugin on my I use during the games just a traditional ESPN box score, but I have this Google plugin that for one, I mean, I can just screen share it with you guys right here. 1 second. So as you guys see here, it's got the setup where the two teams are next to each other rather than on top of each other, which is nice because you could just look at it. Even like, I don't know if you guys could see this, but like the box score we get at the games, they're on top of each other. And I like it side by side so you can kind of compare the starting groups, the bench groups. It just makes reading it a little bit easier. But then on the team stats side, as I'm pulling up here, it has this advanced metrics table where it's got the pace, the offensive and defensive ratings, the net ratings, effective field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, long twos, which are outside of the paint twos, 2-point field goal percentage, free throws made divided by field goal attempts, that rate, defensive rebound percentage, offensive rebound percentage, block percentage, steal percentage, turnover percentage. So you get those advanced metrics for that game, and that could be a little noisy in terms of like, obviously it's a 1 game sample size, but that's something that I've use every game. Cleaning the glass is another one for both in game and post game, going through. I use dunks and threes more so for like award voting and kind of tiebreakers with that. And then NBA.com/stats is a big one, especially because it updates more or quicker than a lot of the other sites. So like Basketball Reference, it's usually next day. NBA.com/stats often has most things updated like by within a couple of hours of post game. So I'd say it's a combination of multiple sites. Also Synergy, that's more for like rewatching stuff or going through pick and roll possessions, defensive possessions. So there's a bunch of sites I use, but I would say primarily ESPN for in-game, then out of game, NBA.com, Cleaning the Glass, Basketball Reference, and Synergy. I would say those are the 4 primary ones I use. Good question. Mitch Potter, thank you for the super chat. I love how good he plays so much, bigger than he is. Rebounding, guarding forwards like MPJ and active D. Can you talk about how that translates to playoffs? It's huge in the playoffs. And that's why I think even like, I think he's going to potentially have a bigger role than one might think. Even compared to a guy like Gabe, I think Gabe is a better point guard defender and Gabe is a better shooter. But if Gabe isn't making shots, if he's having one of the nights where he's like kind of off, I think you can make a case for Goody because of the defensive versatility, the size, the rebounding. And I think he makes those like 50-50 plays a little bit more. And it's not to make it like a Goody versus Vincent comparison, but that is a conversation. Like, it's going to be the 5 primary starters. I think DFS is going to be a stalwart within the rotation. And then I think Vando and Gabe and Goodwin will be the next 3. And like that will be their top 9. And Dalton might make it like 9.5. But I think depending on the matchup and depending on how everyone's playing, like there have been some nights recently where he's outplayed Vincent and Vando and had a bigger impact than them. So like, I think you can make a case for him some nights as high as like number 7 in the pecking order, which again is like why this guy has to be on the roster. There's like no, like it is, I'll say this now, and I don't say this lightly, it'll be malpractice if the Lakers do not sign this guy. Like I very rarely hammer stuff. Like I will hammer this if he is not on the roster, like barring him getting injured, outside of that, he needs to be on the 15-man roster. Like it's a no-brainer at this point. He is too good, too important, and signing him to a 3 or 4 year deal is just like it's the most obvious move. So Lakers have to do that. But in terms of how it translates, like I think those are all the things you want in a playoff role player in a supporting cast. The one thing with him will be teams will ignore him. It'll be on the scouting report. This guy is a below average shooter, although he's been shooting well from the corners, and teams will ignore him. And he will have to make some shots. And if he doesn't, that could potentially shift it toward JJ having a quicker hook with him. And maybe that's where Gabe gets the nod over him. Because I do think they will be in competition to some extent because there's only going to be so many minutes available. Like Luka and LeBron and Austin are going to be playing 37, 38 plus minutes. I think Luka and LeBron will probably be closer to like 40 to 42. So when you just look at like the available backcourt minutes, there's only so many. And so to some extent, Gabe, Goodwin, and Dalton will be in competition for the remaining 28 minutes that Austin, Luka, and LeBron are not on the floor together. And maybe it's probably less than 28, like 24. So those 3 guys, I think Dalton will be the odd man out, and they obviously can go a bit smaller, but there's only going to be so many minutes available at that spot. And I think Goodwin has a chance to really push Gabe for that like 7th man role behind DFS. So that'll be something to monitor. And I think the rebounding is going to be big because the Lakers, I think teams will look at the lack of like conventional size, especially at the 4 or 5 spots, and try to hammer them on the offensive glass. And having a guy like Goodwin, also his offensive rebounding and what that does for the offensive, just second chance points and whatnot. Him guarding up, Lakers are going to switch a lot. They're going to need guys who could guard up. I think, for example, Goodwin is better than Gabe at guarding those guys. Like how many times have we seen Gabe? And it's not even like Gabe's technique is great. His positioning is great. He's sturdy. He's like he's got a low center of gravity and he could move guys. It's just he's 6'1". He's 6'2", and Goodwin is I think he's closer to like 6'4". I think he's listed as 6'3", 6'4". I think he's closer to 6'4". He's got the really long arms, and he just it's just a different caliber of size defensively. So I think he's much harder to like attack and pick on the way that we've seen some bigger forwards just shoot over Gabe. I don't think they could do that with Goodwin as much. So I think he like could end up having a sneaky big impact and like end up being some nights the second bench guy, which I think again for the Lakers to find that with a two-way spot is incredible. Eeg, thank you for the super chat. JB, been a minute. It has been. Well, what's up? How you been? I'm not so sure LeBron will be retired next summer. I think Luka drastically extends his window. His workload over 82 plus 16 has severely changed. Can you see him playing till 45? To your first point, I agree. And I think the Lakers, like, it is going to be an interesting thing for the Lakers because obviously if LeBron wants to continue to play and re-sign, like you do that. The tricky thing is like if you can, he does have some type of window, whether it is 45, whether it's 43, 40, like 42, 43, 45. He does have some expiration date, right? Theoretically, I don't know. Maybe maybe not. I mean, if there's one guy who could play forever, it is LeBron. But you also have the opportunity cost of just like if he continues to play 2, 3, 5 more years, you are going to miss out on some stars potentially that could be like longer term building blocks of a 25, 26-year-old who could like grow with Luka for the next 8 to 10 years. And I don't know if that has a trickle down effect where then maybe they're looking at pairing that star up with LeBron and Luka instead of Austin. Like I don't know what that ultimately looks like, but there is a potential opportunity cost to some extent, like longer term. Obviously, in the short term, if LeBron continues to play the way he's playing, like you don't overthink it. And I think he's earned that right as a guy who won a championship, a guy who has even just took a slight discount for the Lakers. And like, I think he's earned a certain status with the franchise. He's going to have his jersey retired. And you know, I think he's climbing up the Laker great, like all time rankings. So that's like its own kind of wrinkle down the road. In terms of him playing toward 40 to 45, I think he could. Do I think he will? No. I think at most, I think at most he plays 2 more years, to be honest. Like two more seasons past this season. So I guess 2025, 26, 2026, 27. I have a hard time seeing him playing beyond that. I think he could if he wants to. He just to take his words, he has made it seem like he does not have much more time. Now you could argue like 3 years, 5 years, like isn't much more time. Just like 1 or 2 years isn't much more time. But I think the way he's talked about it, it has implied it's probably another year or two. So I don't think he's going to play till 45, but I think he could play till 45 if he wanted to. He also said that. Jeremiah, thank you for the super chat. Celebrated 2-year anniversary with my girlfriend. Lakers beat the Nuggets. Late night gang to top it. I appreciate that. Congrats on 2-year anniversary with your girlfriend. I wish you guys nothing but the best. And I'm glad you're spending it here with us and the late night gang. As a longtime Laker fan, what would be your starting 5 of fan favorite Lakers like Sasha, Rick Fox, Van Exel, etc.? Really good question. I think you already have a couple of them in Van Exel and Fox. I will say that like a couple of guys that are probably honorable mentions for me are DJ Bega and Slava Medvedenko. I love the reported quote of Kobe saying when Kobe was threatening to ask out and saying he was going to bring Slava with him. Like that just there's something very endearing about Slava. And if Kobe liked Slava that much, that there's no reason not to like Slava that much. It's a really tough question. Like based on when I became like my favorite, I'll say this, my favorite Lakers lineup of all time is Shaq, Robert Horry, Rick Fox, Kobe, Derek Fisher. That will always be like because it kind of built toward that, right? Because obviously, first championship, the primary starting lineup was Shaq, AC Green, Glenn Rice, Kobe, and I think it was Ron Harper, if I'm not mistaken. I got into them the second year, which was when it was Shaq, Horace Grant, Rick Fox, Kobe, and Derek Fisher. And then the third year, Ori finally started at power forward. So I think like kind of building up to that third straight title, like that became my favorite lineup. And so I would say Fox and maybe even Ori, but Ariza's up there for me. Josh Powell, Lamar, of course. So although I don't know where, like if he might be too good. I was a big Bynum guy because 17 is one of my numbers, and Bynum at 17. This is tough. Devin George. We're just going down memory lane here with the Lakers. Gennaro Pargo was a random one, but that was one of my favorite players at NBA Live. With my best friend David, we would always play with Gennaro Pargo. It was live or 2K, I don't remember. I think we played both. This is a tough one. I would say from a center spot, the center spot's tough because Lakers had such great centers. Like obviously going Shaq into like Bynum/Powell. I guess I'll pick DJ Benga as my center. I will go Ori, Fox. Honestly, I like the Luke Walton. I like Jordan Farmar. I mean, I'd probably go Ori, Fox, Sasha, Nick Van Exel. And I missed the Nick Van Exel era, but I caught up on it. And I always liked Nick Van Exel as an opponent. And then actually, like, I didn't know originally that he was a former Laker. And then once I learned the history and him being part of the 4 All-Stars in 98, I retroactively had a lot of Nick Van Exel love as a Laker. That's a fun one, though. Would love to see what everyone says in the comments of what their 5 would be. Diego, thank you for the super chat. It's crazy to me how 10 years ago LeBron was the most hated man in basketball to now I can't go a day without LeGlaze hitting my feed. I mean, I wouldn't say it was 10 years ago. I still think there are a lot of LeBron haters. I feel like the 2016 title was what really shifted it, which I guess technically was 9 years ago. But even with the bubble title, like, I know people made this point, but I think if any other team wins the bubble title or any other like best player wins the bubble title, we're not even necessarily calling it the bubble. Like, I think we call it the bubble title because it was COVID and it was like this crazy thing that happened. But I think that there's been, people have called it the Mickey Mouse title and stuff to try to get at LeBron. And I've even seen people, 3 titles plus a Mickey Mouse title. And it's just like, that's not true. So I still think there's a lot of LeBron haters, but he's certainly more beloved than he was around the decision time, around the Miami time. I think going back to Cleveland helped. I think winning a title in Cleveland helped. I also think finally just winning a title and getting that, off his back in that criticism. But going to the Lakers, I honestly think, like, obviously it helped with the Lakers fan base and that marriage, I think, has been led to a certain level of like popularity that even I think he was at before, but like it's just he's on the biggest stage in basketball right now. But certainly there's a lot of people who hate the Lakers, right? So I feel like LeBron sometimes can't win no matter what he does, but it is certainly he's in a much better place in terms of how people view him from just like I think a lot more people like him now than they did 10 years ago, to your point. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I see plenty of LeBron hate on my timeline. I don't know if we have different algorithms, but I see plenty of debate shows and social media people going after him. Or I also see it in my comments whenever I post anything LeBron related. Lee Baggy, thank you for the super chat. They got SGA, we got Jordan Goodwin. There you go. Lakers got their SGA. I mean, in all seriousness, like I would like to see what he looks like against him. I don't think he's gonna like shut him down, but he might be their best option against him. It's him or Vando. Eeg, thank you for the super chat again. Does the energy from the team, specifically JJ, LBJ, and in-house people you speak to, feel different than it did in November, December? Is there palpable energy change because of title or a serious run as possible? 100%. Now, I would say the vibes have always been really good. Like that was something that for those who've been following me for a while, I was saying in training camp that like this was the best vibes around this locker room that I've at least covered. And you know, it's been 5 years of me covering, and the first two were kind of weird. First year was COVID, or the post-COVID year, but also partly COVID. So like we weren't allowed in the locker room. Second year, we still weren't allowed in the locker room. It was just press conferences. So like I kind of missed out on a big chunk of the Vogel era, or the end of the Vogel era, in terms of like being around the team in a locker room sense. So I've only covered the Darvin two teams in the locker room and this one. And I would say the vibe has been much different. I think around that like late November, early to mid December stretch where they were really struggling, they had the blowout losses to Denver and Phoenix. They had the loss to OKC where they were, several crunch time mistakes. Then they also had the Miami loss, the Minnesota loss, a couple of Minnesota losses. I think that stretch was pretty rough from a morale and just any locker room is going to be tough when you're losing. But then they did the DFS trade, and I think that really changed things in terms of the culture and having another, I think, respected voice and a tone setter from a defensive perspective. And again, I mentioned it earlier, fourth best defense since acquiring DFS. And then, of course, the Luka trade. And they had already been building toward being a really good team pre-Luka trade, and then that just supercharged it all. So certainly, I think the vibes are really good. The guys are always joking, even in losses. Like I think they're clearly upset, and there are certainly some guys that take it harder than, like, Austin's a guy who's like he's like depressed after every loss. Like Austin just looks like joyless after every loss, and I think that's one of the things that makes him like how he is. But and so is JJ, right? Like JJ is like JJ is a wreck after every loss, but I think even in that, there's kind of like a commonality of a certain culture in the locker room. So I think the biggest things have been culture and communication. And I think they haven't missed a beat adding DFS, adding Luka, adding some of the new guys. And it's been a really good vibe. So yeah, I would say certainly a higher level than November, December, but really outside of like that 2-week stretch where they had some pretty rough losses, I think that the vibes have been good all season. Christopher, thank you for the super chat. Chat is at war right now. AR, parentheses, AR should start, parentheses, AR should start on the bench with an even smaller. AR should have gone for max contingent. Thoughts? No one divides the chat quite like AR. I don't know what it is about him that makes him so polarizing. I think we've seen the results. I've been against the AR should come off the bench from all season, no matter what, even when they were struggling at the beginning. I said when they got Luka, I said I wanted to, like, I wasn't completely ruling it out, but I wanted to at least see it. And I felt Austin deserved that based on the way he'd been playing. And he's only gone up in terms of how he's been playing. And I know part of it's been with LeBron out, but they've had a great defense with Austin, Luka, and LeBron together. So you can't even make the argument that like the defense there's like these defensive concerns. Like he's been an awesome number 3. He's been able to scale up and be a number 2 or even a number 1 in the Indiana game, the Denver game. So I'm firmly in the, like, I don't even think it's a conversation, to be honest. Mitch Potter, thank you for the super chat. Hope Norma and Chandler are doing well. All the best. I appreciate that. Chandler will be going to the game tomorrow with my wife, and that's going to be fun. It's going to be his second game. He went to back in 2023, one of the first round games against Memphis. I want to say it was game 4, if I'm not mistaken, but it was game 3 or game 4, and he did not have a great time. He just he got pretty bored, and it was a little too loud for him. But he was like 5, so I'm hoping now he has a little bit of a better time, and he's more into basketball, more into the Lakers. So I think he should be a fun one. Zephyrin or Zeph Aaron, thank you for the super chat. You spend so much time formulating questions to ask players in press conferences, and then jump on here to be the what takey questions. Props, good dub. Yeah, this has been like the most fun thing I can say about this whole thing has been just the interactions with you all, and even the negative ones, right? I've had my fair share of people come at me for Austin or Max or D'Lo or any of my takes throughout the season, and it's all love on my end. I'm honored that you guys tune in. I'm honored that you guys are part of the late night gang, that you guys support, and it's fun to answer the questions. So yeah, I enjoy it. All right, I'm going to go about uh, 5 more minutes. Alfonso Carter, good show, great information. Thank you. I appreciate that. Noir, hit the thumbs up for Jovan. Let's get those likes up. I can never see where the likes are at, but let's get them up. Britton, Jovan, do you have a favorite in-game moment this season so far? That's a good question. I think there's a lot. I think the first touchdown pass from Luka to LeBron in their first game against Utah, like the early Luka days of him going up against Utah, him going up against Dallas, him going up against Denver. Like I thought those were that was kind of the peak of that. Still like the shock of everything. I think the Knicks, the first Knicks win, and some of the shots LeBron was hitting against some really good wing defenders, it didn't matter. I think the first Boston game, I know I'm kind of going more with games. I guess like Dalton in November, just torching Utah at 37. That was a big one. I think even Austin in the Indiana game and like what he was doing in the fourth quarter of that game. There's a lot of moments that stand out. In like, it's tough to say like a favorite play. Like LeBron's had some ridiculous dunks and posterizations. The chase down block that he had on Chris Dunn in the Clippers win. I mean, Luka's step backs, I would say, against the Bucks. Just I mean, Luke like against the Clippers. against Denver, against Dallas. There's a lot of good Luka moments. One for sure was that behind the back pass that Luka had that I've talked about like 7 times to Austin in the at Utah game that I think like less than 10 NBA players could do in an NBA game, of like going downhill, your momentum's carrying you forward, you fling a no look, behind the back pass on target, 20 plus feet away to a shooter like that. That's just one of the most ridiculous passes. And that's like Luka's kind of done a pass like that now, like, 5 times. So just part of the Luka experience. I mean, LeBron's heat checks also, when LeBron hits like 3 or 4 threes in a row, that's been something. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of moments. Art of War, Jovan, do you think the Lakers will blow out the Bucks tomorrow? No, I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think they have a chance to win the game. I think it'll probably be a close game, though. Thank Charlie. Heal up, feel better. Says he isn't active today because he got the damn allergies. Thanks for the work. Thank you for tuning in. So we got Eeg. Thank you for the super chat. Thoughts on Nico moving forward after this? I'm not sure any team would ever hire him unless they win a ring. Was this pure ego? A case of I want to win, but only on my terms? So the more separation I have from this whole situation in terms of just like time passing, like I just have a hard time believing this was all Nico. I just don't see how ownership was not involved. Obviously they were involved, but like more involved than what the narrative has been. I don't think, as much as owners empower their basketball personnel, you need a really good reason. Like, let's just take a step back, right? Let's say you're the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and Nico Harrison comes to you and says, I want to trade Luka Doncic. I would need to be sold on that to agree to that. I would not just go with it and be like, okay, let's trade Luka. Like, what, you want to trade him to the Lakers? Anthony Davis? Yeah, let's do that, right? Like, that's not how that went down, right? So I think that the more time passes, the more I feel like ownership has kind of gotten, and look, they've gotten a lot of flack, and people are canceling season tickets and protesting. And like, I'm not saying ownership hasn't got it at all, but like Nico has been the face of it. And it does seem like he was not sold on Luka. So I'm not absolving him. Like, I think he's very much to blame, if not the most to blame. But ownership, ultimately at the NBA level and just in professional sports, even if you are more of a passive owner, like Nico cannot do this trade without ownership signing off on it. And they did sign off on it. So like at the end of the day, the owner or the governor, whatever you want to call them, of the organization, that's where the buck stops. And they agreed to this. So you can look at Nico a couple ways. Like, I actually think in a way, if it really was ownership that was the driving force or kind of, 50-50, whatever with him, that in some ways that could be a positive to potential owners of looking at it like, okay, well, this guy will be a bit of a pawn or like do what we want. The flip side is I think he is viewed so like toxically and just like as such a negative asset or like, person or just manager that if he gets fired and another team hires him as their GM or president or whatever, that fan base is going to revolt and like freak out and protest. And he's like, this is going to follow him now, regardless of what the truth is. And we'll never know the real truth as to like Was this an ownership mandate? Was this him coming to ownership and like convincing them? Is it somewhere in the middle? Like there's always degrees of what the truth is, right? Whatever that is, we'll never know, right? Like we were not in those conversations. We only know what's been reported, and every report has its own agenda to some extent. And there's been some conflicting things with all the reporting with this. But regardless, Nico Harrison, he's got the red A on his chest. And wherever he goes, he's going to have that red A. And that is probably why I think you just can't touch him if you're another organization. I think on some level, like, I think Leon Rose has done a great job in New York. But you don't think James Dolan would love a guy like Nico Harrison who, like, just if James Dolan says jump, it's going to be how high? Like that's the type of owner he's been. And that seems to be the type of president that Nico is, or you know, potentially was, right? So I do think though, maybe he gets like a smaller consultant. Like you'll sometimes see former GMs get like a consultant role with a team, and it's basically almost like a favor just to kind of keep them with like a title and like a paycheck. Maybe he gets that. In terms of winning a ring, they're not winning the ring. They're not winning a ring this year, and they're almost certainly not winning a ring next year. Kyrie might miss all of next season, if not most of the season. They got some tough financial decisions to make. They're in a tough spot. Like the short-term window that they were talking about does not exist anymore. It would have to be 2 years from now, which now you're talking about Kyrie and AD in their mid-30s and Clay. So I think that they're in a tough spot, but certainly some ego, certainly some winning on his own terms. I'm not going to rule that out. But like, again, if you are a manager or if you own a business and your manager comes and says, hey, I want to fire our star employee, you're not just going to fire the star employee blindly. You're going to need evidence and support as to why that decision makes sense. And if it really is a star and it really is your best employee or whatever, like it's going to take a lot of convincing. It's not just like, he showed up late last week or he was drinking beer and smoking hookah. Like that's not going to get that player or, you know, that employee fired or in this case traded. So I think ownership is kind of skating a little bit like, and then some of their comments about not mentioning Dirk as an example of a star who has a certain work ethic, and then mentioning Shaq, which like, look, Shaq's my favorite player of all time, but he was not necessarily known for his work ethic. And he'll even admit that as much and say in the summers he was making movies and albums and partying and doing these different things. And like, he just had this natural ability and would often talk about playing his way into shape in the preseason and like early in the season. So to kind of use Shaq as the example of what Luka is not is like, I guess in a way, a good thing for Luka, but didn't make sense. So I kind of think ownership is honestly as much to blame, if not more, because they ultimately signed off on it. I've blown past the 5 minutes, of course. Rich, do you know any Laker insides you can't share? Yes, but I can't share them. One day, maybe one day, we'll see. We'll see what happens this summer. Then we can revisit this. Michael D, thank you for the super chat. Turn this one off a little bit before the first ended. I said, oh, Luka, how's it going? We good. Also, I think you mentioned this, but what Xbox games do you play? Right now, it's just Fortnite with my son, a little bit of Gears 5, because I used to be a big Gears head, and he plays a little bit of Minecraft, but that's about it. I have such little free time that like it pretty much is just like spend time with my wife and son, and then the video games go into that, or it's kind of like catching up on my favorite shows or movies. Like I'm big on TV and movies. Steve Stevenson, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Yes, shout out to you all. Can't wait for more Luka one-legged threes at the buzzer, baby. It's just it's an impossible shot to guard. That he can create it against anybody. But shout out to you, Steve Stevenson, and I like the name. It's a good name. No username 12. How juicy is your insider info? A scale depends on. There's multiple things, but one of them I think is pretty juicy. Brawny Van Exel. Buha. Buha. Oh, man. All right. I'm going to wrap here. I appreciate you all so much for watching and listening and staying up as part of this. Okay. I'm getting roped in for this final one. Colby S30. Are you excited for the Severance finale? I am. I am a little bit nervous that I think there's a lot of pressure they've set up. It's like every episode is kind of answered some questions, but then they'll answer a question and then add 3 more questions to that topic. So it's like there are at least like 7 to 10 really big questions that they need to address in the finale. And I'll be a little disappointed if they don't answer most of those. So I think that they've built up the finale to be like this incredible reveal. And based on how last season went, that's kind of how it was. But I'm a little nervous that there's a lot of hype and like it's going to be tough for that. Sometimes when there's that much hype, it's just tough to live up to it. But we'll see. I mean, I'm like tentatively, I'm excited. I'm tentatively a little nervous though. But for those asking, Severance is a TV show on Apple TV where there's this severance procedure where you can be basically you have like a work version of yourself that you have like this identity at work and you have it almost like splits your mind up basically where at work you go through an elevator, you hear a ding and then you're like a completely different person and you keep your work life and your home life separate. So Mitch Potter, Lakers Bucks prediction. You know what I'm feeling? I'm going to go Lakers. And sometimes when I've been asked for a prediction, I've gone the opposite way and I try to be as honest as possible. But I feel like with the way the Lakers are playing, Luka only had to play 32 minutes tonight. Austin kind of played deep into the fourth. I didn't really understand that, but I'm going to say Lakers. But perfect way to end the show. All right, so thank you all for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back in less than 24 hours, probably 23-ish hours, 22-ish hours, to break down Lakers Bucks and how the Lakers closed out this 6-game and 8-day stretch. I will talk to you all then.